Welcome to the Practical NLP podcast with me, Andy Smith. Catch up on previous episodes at nlppod.com. In this episode, we're going to find out what values are and why they're important for motivation and for checking that you're on the right track. Many NLP trainers leave values until the Master Practitioner course, but they're too important for that, I think. Knowing how to elicit, prioritize, and align values could make all the difference between having goals that look good on paper, but deep down you don't care about, and compelling goals that you know you're going to achieve. Of course, team motivation and goal setting is important in a business context, so we'll show you the additional steps you need to take when interviewing a prospective new team member to check that their personal values are compatible with the team's values. We'll also explore the very different effects of towards and away from motivation, and you'll learn an easy way to check what your mix of towards and away from is for any given goal or value. You'll discover how to check for potential conflicts in your value set which could paralyze your decision making or lead to self-sabotage, and how to resolve those conflicts so you're aligned 100% with what you want to achieve. And you'll find out what's missing from the SMART goals model, which is standard in business, why it doesn't work so well for personal goals, and how to put the missing piece back. Finally, you'll discover how to supercharge your goals to make them more compelling and motivating, and get 2 methods for installing your goals in your future timeline. So let's start with what you absolutely must do before setting any goal or New Year's resolution or making any kind of significant decision, which is to clarify your values. First, what are values? This is one of those happy occasions where the NLP term means pretty much the same as it does in everyday English. Your values are what's important to you, what you hold dear, what you value in fact. Your values are emotionally charged. When you think about one of your values, you get a feeling about it. That's how you know it matters to you. So your values are also what provide the motivating force behind your actions. They get you out of bed in the morning and determine how you spend your time. If something is not important to you, you're not going to spend any time in pursuit of it. Your values are also the criteria, a word you'll sometimes see cropping up in NLP books, that you use to decide whether a particular action is right or wrong. They guide your decisions and provide meaning in your life. This guidance usually happens at a more or less unconscious level. You usually know if something is right or wrong without having to think about it too much. When you follow the guidance in this section to become explicitly aware of your values, you can use them as a checklist to evaluate any choices you're offered. We learn our values in the course of our upbringing from our parents, peer groups, education, and the information we take in from the media. We also modify our values in the light of the conclusions we draw for ourselves from the events of our lives. Values are abstract concepts. Some examples would be fun, integrity, learning, or security, rather than particular things or actions. This means that they can be fulfilled in many different ways. You're not tied to one particular career choice, for example, because there may be many different careers that fulfill your values. Because values are abstract concepts, you'll recall from our discussion of nominalizations way back in the language episodes of this podcast that a given value can mean very different things to different people. So if someone is talking to you about efficiency or excellence, they may mean something quite different from your internal representation of it. The values that are important to you in your life as a whole may play out with some variations in different contexts of your life. What's important for you in your career, for example, may be different from your priorities for relationships or health and fitness. So let's elicit some values. This is a straightforward process, whether you're doing it for yourself or helping a coaching client to elicit their values. As usual, you're going to get better results with your own values if you have someone else guiding you through the process, but it's still worth doing even if you're just taking yourself through it. Let's do it now. You'll need a pencil and paper, or if you want to get really sophisticated about it, some sticky notes. I'm going to give you the instructions as if you were eliciting the values of a coaching client, since that's how you'll probably want to use the process in future, but it's easy to apply it to yourself. Choose the area of their life, like for example career, relationships, or finances, that the client wants to work on first, and ask, what's important to you about that area? When you're asking that question, by the way, use the actual name of the area, career or whatever, as it makes the question more powerful. Write down the immediate answer that comes to the client's mind. Then continue to ask, what else is important to you about that area? Keep asking that same question until the client runs out of answers. Typically, they'll get about 5 or 6 values that come to mind easily. Then stop. They'll say something like, "That's it, I think," or "That's all I can think of." At this point, you ask with a great deal of rapport, "Okay, and what else is important to you about that area?" Note the presupposition in that question. If you'd said, "Is there anything else that's important?" it would be very easy for the client to have a very quick look at what they were currently aware of and say, "No, there's nothing else." Asking what else is important presupposes that there is something else and makes them search a bit deeper. What typically happens is that the client will unearth some more values that weren't at the forefront of their conscious attention, but which may be as important or even more important in driving their behavior. When do you stop asking? When they start going round in circles, or when you're approaching a point where to keep asking will be to lose rapport. You'll end up with a list of around 7 to 10 values, maybe less, maybe more. Now some tips for getting the best from this process. First, the values you end up with should be abstract concepts. If the area you're looking at is work and career, and one of the answers is something concrete like a good company car, you need to find out what abstract value this is representing. This is easily done. Just ask, what's important about having a good company car? Continue to ask the what's important question until you get up to an abstract value rather than a thing or an activity. You're after what the car will do for them or what it signifies. In this case, for some people it might be recognition, for others it might be reward, for others it may be that they're going to be spending a lot of time traveling in this job, so they just want something that they can enjoy driving. So enjoyment could be the value. Secondly, listen out for words like satisfaction, fulfillment, or contentment. If you hear one of those, check what that word means to the client. If it's what they would get if all the other values on the list were present, you can safely take it out. If it means something else to them, leave it in. Thirdly, this list should be about the client's values rather than what you as the practitioner think should be on the list. Remember, everyone has a different map of the world. What's important to you may not be important to them. Also, because abstract concepts like values may mean different things to different people, it's possible that the value that you think is missing could be included in their list under a different name. On a related note, I've heard that some NLP trainers used to suggest that if a negative value comes up, one that's about something the client wants to get away from or avoid, rather than what they want, that the practitioner should get the client to reframe it in positive terms. I don't think many trainers would agree with that these days. The client will relate better to their own words, and if a strong away from motivator is reframed into a positive word that doesn't activate the same neural circuits, what happens to their motivation? So leave the values in the client's own words. We'll be talking more about towards and away from motivation in values soon. That's it for this week's podcast. Remember, you can see the show notes for this episode at nlppod.com, and you can download back episodes you may have missed from the online store at webstore.nlppod.com. See you next time.